All right, happy Friday from all of us here at the Pats Interference Podcast. Proud member of the nifty, nourishing, and noble CLNS Media Network. By all of us, of course, I mean just me today, solo episode. It is just across 2 o'clock on Friday, August 22nd. And although it's just me today, we are not going to follow everyone's favorite segment, Andrew Talks to Himself and Drinks Alone, because, as I said, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've got some obligations today. The plan instead is to do Andrew is on his third Celsius of the day because he went to bed at 4 a.m. last night following a preseason game that no one should ever speak of again. Giants win 42-10 in the Meadowlands. Patriots play 2 starters. If you want to count Keion White, we could be gracious and count 3. Though we played 30 snaps last night, Keion White did, so not too great. And instead, we're going to cover 5 big picture thoughts, most of which, if you've read my column from last night, were in there, though we have some new stuff. 53-man roster projection, and then all of your mailbag questions. But first, I just want to give a quick shout out to everyone who answered the call of leaving some new reviews and ratings and feedbacks. And you've heard me feedbacks. Can you tell I'm on third Celsius today? You know I'm always open to any kind of feedback. This could be via DM or email or in those reviews, but I'd be lying if I said the reviews that just came in, 5 stars, glowing, didn't mean a little bit more. So the best part of this podcast is not, just seeing those. Like, you could ask any number of people to do that. The point is, it's been awesome connecting with a lot of folks here on the podcast as we go into year 4. So thank you to everyone who takes the time to listen, watch, and like I said, rate and review on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, which, by the way, subscribe to the YouTube channel @_Andrew Callahan. So let's get straight to it. 5 big picture thoughts. What's most important right now with the Patriots having 4 days left until Tuesday's 53-man roster deadline? Well, I was thinking last night, first and foremost, about a guy who did not play a single snap, and that was Drake Maye. And I wasn't even thinking about the Patriots' most recent preseason game. I was thinking about a quote that Mike Vrabel gave last Saturday in Minnesota about Drake. Here was that quote. Mike Vrabel: "We talked to him about not taking a senseless hit outside the pocket on 2nd and 10. If there's nobody there, throw it away, and we'll try to convert on 3rd down. Just being smart and understanding those little details." Those little details, in my opinion, could mean the difference between Maye playing 17 games and missing enough that the Patriots are just completely taken out of the playoff race. Because everything that we've seen through training camp and 3 preseason games, and I mean, you could count the years before where we've watched these offensive linemen, is that this offensive line is not good enough to protect Drake Maye on its own. Period. It is likely the Patriots will have 2 rookies starting on the left side of their line. They have a bad pass protecting center, as respected and smart and hardworking as Garrett Bradbury is. And they've got Morgan Moses, a 34-year-old right tackle who is 34. So Maye has to be willing to protect himself more than most quarterbacks, I would say, even in the league. I've talked about this. I've written about it. I think this is the central tension of the Patriots season will be Maye's discipline, not only just with sliding and avoiding hits, but willingness to play inside of structure in the McDaniels offense, but also making off-script plays outside the pocket, which has all of us, self-included, downright titillated about his potential as an NFL quarterback going back to his time in North Carolina. Because outside the pocket and outside of structure is where the danger is. But it's also where the big plays are going to be that could elevate this Patriots season to a different level, provided he navigates that balance, honestly, as well as any quarterback in the league. And that sounds like a lot, because it is. But everything we've seen through this summer slowly slid more and more onto Maye's plate, and that was mostly due to the failures in pass protection. I had him with the sack rate over team periods. Again, these are subjective, so take a couple of percentage points one way or another, at about 17%. Okay, almost 1 out of 5 dropbacks in training camp would have resulted in a sack. That, of course, is beyond untenable. It's disastrous if that were to be in a regular season game. That won't happen this year, but the point is protecting him is an all-hands-on-deck effort, and it starts with the quarterback. Number 2, trades. So this is a little bit more imminent. I do think the Patriots will swing a trade or 2 in the coming days. I am not expecting fireworks, but that is just a gut feeling. Kyle Duggar and Anfernee Jennings have been available for a while, according to the 3 teams that I talked to. Only one of those players has helped his trade value this summer, and it's not the guy with the contract who's going to be an obstacle in any kind of talks. I do think Kendrick Bourne could still be a possibility, but his injury clouds the matter in the same way that it did right before the trade deadline 2023, when he probably was on his way out of town had he not torn his ACL in Miami. Bourne also could give them insurance against a couple of things that I think are going to be really important for a team that, you and I have been talking about for years now about the receiver depth being a problem. It still could be with any one injury to a Kayshon Boutte or Demario Douglas or Stephon Diggs. Anything going awry with Stephon Diggs, as it has at previous stops for Stephon, and we'll leave that where it is. And also allows a guy like Efton Chisholm, who's probably only going to be a slot here this season, to just continue to develop as a guy who might be a professional healthy scratch as a rookie. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because when you go back and look at the start of Julian Edelman's career, before he becomes playoff legend, Patriots Hall of Famer, all this different stuff, future Patriots Hall of Famer, of course, is he was a guy who sat behind Wes Welker in 2009, and then Wes Welker tears his ACL in that season finale at Houston. Edelman comes in, has 100 yards. Okay, there he was. Of course, no one's counting or hoping that Demario Douglas has any kind of injury coming this season, given he was their best receiver. But the point is, Demario Douglas leaving the field is pretty much Efton Chisholm's only path onto the field until he develops more outside. He's good enough to be on the roster, but right now is not good enough to be anywhere on the outside. That's where Bourne can provide some insurance. So I think what they'll do is use Bourne on one of the two spots that you get on injured reserve before cutdown day, or on cutdown day, I should say. Every team gets two. And those guys are not lost for the season in the way that everyone else who was not placed in those two spots is lost for the season if they go on IR before the 53-man roster deadline. I don't know if they'll use a second, but we'll get to that later in the roster projection. Big thought number 3. No surprise today among the Patriots' initial cuts. Mike Vrabel shared these at a press conference at noon. Here were the 14 players that have been let go. Linebacker R.J. Moten, running back Mike Bernard, wide receiver Phil Lutz, defensive tackle Kyle Pecco, tight end Cole Fotheringham, running back Shane Watts, defensive tackle Philip Bleedy, quarterback Ben Wooldridge, defensive back Jordan Polk, linebacker Monty Rice, guard City So, tight end Jaheim Bell, defensive back, really a corner, Isaiah Bolden, and offensive guard Tyrese Robinson. So that takes them to 77 players. The only two that gave me one eyebrow slight raise were who was bad last night in a game that we're not talking about, and Kyle Pecco, who stuck onto some 53-man roster projections, but I'll just remind you, stuff changes so fast. And even though he had system experience and they're not hurting, but they could use a little bit more depth at defensive tackle than even someone who has been banging the Kairos Tonga drum all summer. He's good. He's going to be an impactful player. The way they rotate, they still want more bodies. Anyway, Pecco's gone. So's gone. They've got to get at least, 24 more players cut or traded or whatever before Tuesday afternoon. Thought number 4. Speaking of cuts, I am here to remind you, if we did not all learn this lesson a year ago, to not expect much from the waiver wire. And I say this because Doug and I were sitting in the press box, our guy, Doug Kai, of course, before last night's game, that again, we're not going to talk about. And we're planning how we're going to cover next week, what the schedule is, practices, press conferences, cut down day. We've done this for a while, but his suggestion was, okay, what did we do last year? Let's use that as a template. And I came across this column that I completely forgotten about, where the headline that I had written was Patriots cuts are a reminder of their failures in roster building recently and in the last 5 to 6 years. But there's a quote I want to start with from Drake Maye. And this is not to clown or dunk on Drake Maye. That has been done enough. It is to say that this is something, if you are believing what I'm about to read, you need to reconsider. Here's the quote. We have an opportunity to improve our team through the waiver wire, and we're in a very unique situation right now where we're third on the waiver wire order. There will be some good players that get released, and we're going to try to take advantage of that. The starting guard or starting tackle may not be on our team today. So the Patriots get down to 53 players. Then they claim 4 off of waivers. They were DeMontre Jacobs, Zach Thomas, another offensive lineman, linebacker Curtis Jacobs, and a defensive tackle Eric Johnson from the Colts. DeMontre Jacobs is the only one that stuck around. DeMontre Jacobs is not going to stick around this year. And later in the column, I told you, as Mayo should have known then, quote, if the Patriots coach had followed the history of the waiver wire, he would have known that NFL teams don't cut starting caliber players at premium positions. They keep them after signing them or trading for them or drafting them. And here's the problem. The Patriots, of course, have not drafted nearly enough starting offensive tackles or guards. They're better now than they were a year ago. But we know no one's raising a banner or handing out any kind of hat or t-shirt for that. And here's how you know they've not drafted enough of them, aside from watching just football the last 5 years. Last year, the Patriots kept 7 offensive rookies from their 2024 draft class. Okay. That number matched the same number of offensive players that they kept from their previous 8 draft classes from 2016 to 2023. Now, all of those classes, 2024, the Elliott Wolf class, and the 8 that preceded it are also gone. City So, who we mentioned, Joe Milton got traded months ago. Jaheim Bell got cut today. And they're going to continue to chop this down. Layden Robinson picked last year. I don't think is going to stick around. Which leads us to the 5th and final thought. This is still a multi-year rebuild, especially because of the offensive line. And I'm not tampering expectations. As someone who thinks the Patriots will go 9-8, as someone who's a Drake Maye believer, who is drinking the Mike Vrabel Kool-Aid, all of this. But there are maybe 3 to 5 teams that would swap offensive lines with the Patriots right now. Okay. And pending those rookies, they've whiffed. The Patriots have drafting all of their offensive linemen. Again, pending Will Campbell and Jared Wilson. So set this rookie class aside. They've whiffed on all of their offensive linemen since Mike Onwenu was a 6th round pick in 2020. Bill Belichick's draft classes were disastrous. Elliott Wolf did no better last year outside of Drake Maye, which is the biggest, most important piece of that class. Okay. But nothing from Jalen Polk, Layden Robinson, who we already mentioned, Javon Baker, Milton, Jaheim Bell, etc. So because of those failures, there's no one quick snap of the fingers and they're contending again. I know most of you get this. I'm just going to reiterate it for everybody, though, because in order to dig themselves out of what has been this giant hole, it's going to take almost as much time as it took the Patriots to put themselves in there in the first place. So we'll leave that there. Ready for a roster projection? Good. Let's start with the quarterbacks. This is easy. Ben Wooldridge got cut today. So 2 for the quarterbacks. Drake Maye, Joshua Dobbs. No notes, no commentary. Let's move on. Running backs. I only think the Patriots are going to keep 3. It's going to be Stevenson, TreVeyon Henderson, and Antonio Gibson. I know some folks think JaMycal Hasty might be the 4th running back. He was a captain for some game that I think was played last night and has also played in special teams. The bigger piece of the JaMycal Hasty conversation is this dude was sitting around at his house about 3-4 weeks ago. So if the Patriots want to put him back there and release him, there's a good chance they can bring him back. And I like Hasty. I think he's a useful NFL player. But if you're the Patriots and you need to create roster spaces, cutting JaMycal Hasty is close to a no-brainer. Receivers, I have 6. We've talked about these a lot, so let's just go down the lock. Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Matt Collins, Kyle Williams. Efton Chisholm, already mentioned. I think he's on the roster. What this means, of course, is there's no Javon Baker. And even as someone whose opinion of his play and even potential has just been a straight nosedive since he was a prospect and got here in New England, based on his play and the stuff I'd been hearing behind the scenes, I still feel a little disappointed that he just couldn't be a little bit better offensively in the preseason, because the way he's thrived as a gunner and on special teams, which I don't even know if that's something he would have taken last year as a kid who's absolutely maturing, as a lot of us do in our early 20s, but especially Baker this summer. And I don't know if they have a backup gunner behind him. They'll have to find one, obviously, and they might there on the waiver wire. Those guys are going to be easier to find than, let's say, offensive linemen, which we'll get to here in a second. But the point is, Baker's had a bad summer as a receiver. Jeremiah Webb, who was, again, very good in some game recently played, has been a better receiver than Javon Baker over the last few weeks. Jeremiah Webb, I don't believe, is making the team. And this is not to knock him. It's just to say that Javon Baker had to do a little bit better, in my opinion. Maybe they do keep him and go with 7 receivers. But then you're talking about Kendrick Bourne, who already mentioned, I think will start on injured reserve. He's not fully completed his recovery yet. I would expect that to happen probably in the next 10 to 14 days. And at that point, then you're knocking off some rust and practicing, at which point you're like, you know what, just take a month to practice and be on injured reserve. You can't practice when you're on IR, but work your way back, get in shape, catch balls, whatever. Baker, I just don't think he's made the case, so the Patriots keep 6. Tight end, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, no brainers. Jack Westover, not a big fan personally. And it's not because he's not a nice dude, which had a few times in the locker room. It's that I just don't think he's strong enough at the point of attack to run behind as a tight end when he's in line. And as a fullback, there are guys that just seem to hit harder. Credit to him for playing more fullback, because the Patriots need one in McDaniel's system because of how much 2-back offense that they like to run. I do think, though, that they will add a fullback or trade for one here. It's just a guess. There's no reporting behind that, not for aggregation. But for now, they keep him. And it just might be one of those guys that they keep for a day or two. And just like last year when they added Johnson and Jacobs and the other Jacobs and Zachary Thomas, he might be the next one to go if and when they find one on waivers. Offensive line. This is probably the toughest call out of them all. I have 9, and I honestly don't even like my selections. Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, Garrett Bradbury, Mike Onwenu, Morgan Moses. That is the best guess at the Patriots week 1 offensive line. If not Jared Wilson at left guard, it will be Ben Brown, who is their 6th lineman. I also have Marcus Bryant, their 7th round rookie at Missouri, who looks to be their swing tackle. This is where you don't really know where they're going to go next. I kept Caedan Wallace. Caedan Wallace would not have been on my 53-man roster projection until a couple of days ago. And I like him as a player. I think he's strong. I think he's tough. I think injuries have Jarrell would have been a nice development path for a kid who really came on late as a prospect at Penn State. And I know it doesn't matter as much, but the point is, he's someone that I think with more time and proper coaching, which the Patriots did not get last year, especially for their offensive line at receiver, should be a useful lineman, whether that's as a left guard or as a backup right tackle. They need to figure it out. I think he makes the roster and is one of the 51st, 52nd, 53rd players. Vederian Lowe is the last offensive lineman. And I know you probably don't want to hear that, but the thing you would also not want to hear is that if, God forbid, Will Campbell or Morgan Moses is gone for the rest of the season, you have Marcus Bryant starting then, and then someone you've never heard of behind them. So Vederian Lowe makes this almost by default, but I think the Patriots would rather have 4 offensive tackles to start the season, and then maybe things develop because you're just not picking these guys off the waiver wire. Or where you do, they end up being DeMontre Jacobs, who's not on the team. The tough cut then here is Cole Strange. And the only consideration I gave to keeping Cole Strange was the fact that he's played some right guard, which Caedan Wallace has not. Ben Brown has done very sparingly. Okay. And you haven't had from Marcus Bryant or Vederian Lowe. So who's your backup right guard? I don't know. This might be the cross training or the extra practices that Caedan Wallace gets in, or you cross train Jared Wilson a little bit more because he's done a little bit of right guard. I just think Cole Strange's time is up in New England. And it's because of his lack of dependability as a backup center. There was a botch snap last night. I've not gone, in fairness to him, close enough to study whether that was his fault or Ben Woldridge's, but I've seen enough in practice to know it's kind of an issue. And there's not enough power there. And the Patriots are not going to be precious under Mike Vrabel about guys who have been here before. And I think that goes for Cole Strange. Will I be shocked if he makes the team? No. Again, he can provide the kind of swing guard versatility about playing left and right and maybe a little bit of center, even if it's not ideal. But right now, I just think Caedan Wallace gives you a higher ceiling and is someone that, if developed, they're going to bank on Doug Marrone doing a good enough job with him as someone who's also undergone a position change. Like Cole Strange is no excuse for getting knocked off a starting job by a 3rd-round rookie at left guard when he's a 4th-year veteran. Caedan Wallace, dealing with injuries and learning a new position, gets a little bit more leeway if he's showing progress, and I think he has. Let's go to defense. Defensive tackles, Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Kairos Tonga, no-brainers. Joshua Farmer, same deal, 4th-round picks, get a 1 year of grace almost no matter how the preseason and training camp goes. I think he stays. Jeremiah Farms Jr. was my 5th and last defensive tackle. I think they want to find a 6th. And I think they want to find a 6th knowing that they're going to rotate a lot up front for a defense that will rush 4 and basically not blitz more than most defenses in the league. And the way that you keep your front 4 fresh is you just, again, keep rotating. I think there should be one on the waiver wire. This is a position that's a little bit deeper, and the difference in schemes across the league is probably going to lend itself to, hey, we're looking for a very specific one gap penetrator. Yes, those guys are valuable. They create interior pressure, but teams that engage in a little bit more two gapping or ask their defensive linemen to do different things, there's going to be a smaller market for the players the Patriots want, and that should behoove them if one of these guys pops up. And the bar they have to clear, by the way, is not that high. Like Kyle Pecco, again, was on 53-man roster projections. I understood the logic. Maybe he comes back in practice squad. I don't know. For now, they keep 5, and we'll see what happens after that. Edge defenders. I have 6. Harold Landry, Caleb on Chason, Keion White, Braden Swinson, Elijah Ponder, who we talked about before, is on 3 out of their 4 special teams. And his position coach is saying, Mike Smith, I've got goosebumps thinking about this kid and watching him. He's on the team. The 6 edge defender is another guy just like Caedan Wallace. I would not have had on my projection up until a day or two ago. And this is more about, okay, we'll keep him on the roster now. This is not a lock for anything, but we'd rather just have the depth and he can play special teams. Because Truman Jones is a third-year player. The thing you probably know about him, if you know about him at all, is that he went to Harvard. Okay, cool. And Mike Vrabel seemingly has taken a liking to him. I don't think there's a huge ceiling there with Truman Jones. I think they'd like to add more depth on the edge. But for now, he sticks because I think Anfernee Jennings does get traded. As we mentioned, him and Kyle Duggar have been available for a long time. Anfernee Jennings has improved his stock, not just with the team, but I think in the eyes of the league. And it goes beyond the 3 sacks that we saw in Minnesota. He had a great freaking week of practice then. He's shown more juice. And I think he's benefited, like a lot of these edge guys, from Mike Smith's coaching. Is a 15-year guy who's worked on a lot of great defenses and is getting more out of Chason, getting more out of Harold Landry because of that coaching. Is not the best scheme fit. So it's just what it is. Let's go quickly through the last couple. Inside linebacker, Robert Spillane, Christian Ellis, Jack Gibbons. I have Marte Mapu on here. This is another like Caedan Wallace, Truman Jones. I don't love it, but he's been a personal protector on the punt team. I thought he played well in the preseason. And Jelani Tavai, I think, starts on IR with that second spot next to Kendrick Bourne. They need more depth here, though, than I felt at the beginning of the year, even as someone who was kind of lukewarm at Christian Ellis and Jack Gibbons. Gibbons better than I expected, but one injury to Robert Spillane and you're in a little bit of trouble. Corner, Christian Gonzalez, of course. Carlton Davis, Alex Austin. Great summer for him. I cannot say that enough. Marcus Jones, DJ James. DJ James got a quick hook in this final preseason game, and that to me said everything about it. I don't love any of the other options. Miles Battle's given up a ton of catches. Kobe Minor, some folks like as their 7th-round rookie. I don't really see it. Another guy who's given up too much, even as the developmental option. Maybe if he's your replacement gunner for Javon Baker, if Baker gets cut, we'll see. But those are the only 5 I feel really good about and the ones I think they'll keep. Safety, Jabril Peppers, Jalen Hawkins, Craig Woodson, Brendan Schooler, and Kyle Duggar. Duggar stays because I don't think there's a market for him. Not right now. And when I talked to him yesterday for 5-6 minutes alone in the locker room, he says his issues are not physical, they're mental. And you could take that one of 2 ways. One of which is, oh boy, you looks like you've lost a step. And I think so. So if it's not going to get any better physically, and those are thoughts I also shared with someone Duggar used to play with via text, and that person will stay private, but you take an ex-Patriots opinion over mine. So there you go. There's an issue there. His tape last year wasn't very good. And then you get to the contract piece. So if you're a team, you are projecting that Kyle Duggar will be better than he's been this summer, better than he was last year. At age 29, still has enough juice to recover. Oh, and he's going to learn yet another new system when he's admitted there have been some obstacles with this one. To me, none of that rings true, even if the Patriots say, we'll eat all of the salary. Like, I just don't think it's going to happen. Vrabel, by the way, seemed very happy with Kyle Duggar. And I'll admit, in the moment, sounded like he was trying to sell Kyle Duggar in the market. Talk about his tackling, the way he triggered, he was around the ball. He did have a pick last night. Credit to him. And then took a bad angle on a screen late in the game that was a 41-yard touchdown the Patriots gave up right down the pipe. So I think he can get a little better here. I don't think he'll be a much bigger, better, different player if he goes elsewhere. And I think teams are going to see it the same way. So for a guy who's been available for a long time, everyone's known it, and is still here, I don't think that's going to change in the next 4 days. Could be wrong, but that's where I'm at. While we're on Duggar, 2 quotes he gave for me about his struggles, because I really think this deserves to be known. This is from him directly. Quote, "It's weird. There's little stuff that where some stuff feels fine, and then other times it's like, whoa, okay, that didn't feel like it normally feels. I don't always know where there's going to be rust in my game, and that's kind of been the hardest part." Second quote, "The first day was tough," talking about training camp. "It was really tough because I didn't know where I would be. My game is not anywhere close to where I want it to be and where I feel like I could be, where I'm going to be, but it is getting better slowly." He's got to pick it up, or at least the Patriots believe he's got to pick it up if he's going to stick around, but I just don't think they have any other options. Specialist, Parker Romo wins the job. I think Andy Borregales lost it when he missed that 49-yarder, allegedly in this game that supposedly happened. Julian Ashby, the long snapper. Bryce Behringer, the punter. Now, if you have been counting along all of this, first of all, just you should be multitasking during the podcast. Okay, you should be at the gym. You should be grocery shopping, driving, doing something else, not counting. But if you were counting, you would have realized we only got to 51 players with Anfernee Jennings traded, Kendrick Bourne on IR, Jelani Tavai on IR. Both of those players could be kept in the 53-man roster. No harm, no foul. I stuck with 51 because I think they're going to add 2 players. And it could be 1 via trade, 1 via waiver, 2 via waivers, 2 via trade. I don't know. But when I say I think they're going to make trades, it's not just that Anfernee Jennings is on the way out. I think they could bring some extra players on the way in. We have a lot to find out about the league. Patriots are one of 4 teams that have played their 3rd preseason game just yet. Okay. Lots more to go. But that's where I'm at. 51-man roster projection. All right. Mailbag questions, but after this quick break. Prizepicks is back. Well, to be clear, it didn't really go anywhere. But we know most of the sports have, right? Patriots still not playing. There's no football, no basketball, no hockey. But baseball is here. Still playing Prizepicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to people who have never even played fantasy sports. Because here's how simple it is. I'm watching the Sox on Tuesday at home, and I think Caedan Wallace, who's on fire, or Jarren Duran, who's not, or Raymond Anthony, who's really coming into form, will have a certain number of hits or runs, or maybe a home run, or Walker Buehler's going to give up a lot of hits, but maybe bounce back. Boom. Those thoughts, those takes turn into cash, but only at Prizepicks. And here's how it works. All you have to do is build a lineup of 2 to 6 players. Every player comes with a stat. It could be hits, it could be runs, it could be walks. And we get into the football season, yards, touchdowns, you name it. They've got more stats and players than you can think of. You look at that player, you see their stat. You pick more or you pick less. And you do this for 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6 players. Lock in your lineup, and that's it. You can win cash. Withdraw it via Venmo, Apple Pay, however you want, quick and easy deposits. Again, you can mix players from sports, different games, teams, whatever it is. The best place to win cash while watching sports. So don't wait anymore. I have it, still playing all summer and will straight through the end of the year. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. This is the best part. To get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. All right, here we go. Gary, right off the top. Andrew, rank the following from most confident to least confident. Patriots win the division. This is an optimistic list. Christian Gonzalez makes first team All-Pro. TreVeyon Henderson wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. Mike Vrabel wins Coach of the Year. And then none of the above. All right, we'll get rid of none of the above. Because I think. So I guess that reads as like, would you pick one or the field? One or none? To which I would say one of those is more likely to happen than none. Which is it? Well, let's rank it. Christian Gonzalez makes first team All-Pro. He was second team last year. He's a year older, more experienced, should be better. His name is out there, which is part of the battle of climbing to an All-Pro or a Pro Bowl. Even some of the best rookies don't get that nod right away. I think he will in year 3. Next most likely, by far, in my opinion, is Mike Vrabel getting Coach of the Year. I think he has the second best odds as it is. Right after that is Patriots win the division, and then TreVeyon Henderson wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. I just called Henderson MVP of training camp. A very official award, by the way. We're gonna mail this trophy to him in the locker room. But the issue is he's going to split touches with Stevenson and Antonio Gibson, and the offensive line he's working behind is not good. And it's honestly been a little bit worse run blocking than I expected for a collection of players who are better run blockers than pass protectors. So I don't see that for Henderson whatsoever. Not to mention receivers and quarterbacks have dominated this lately. So that's where I'm at. Lawrence, hey, Andrew, with Jennings not playing last night, does that mean he's on the team or they're close to a deal with someone? I don't know because I don't really have a read on this one. And they're really internally trying to close ranks. You heard from Vrabel last night saying, hey, we got some rats around here, and everyone dropped the same gift from The Departed. But Jennings missing that time, you would have every reason just to say, don't practice. You know, you're not going to be here, but we'll do right by you, keep you healthy, and we promise to trade you somewhere, even if it's for a bag of footballs. That's a possibility. He also could be dinged up. And for a guy who's done everything they've asked, despite starting the spring and the summer on scout team, you just say, sit tight. No reason to play you on 5 days rest when he played a full freaking football game in Minnesota just last Saturday. Hugh Janus. First of all, let me tell you, I know a lot of Hugh Januses out there. But my man on X here, Hugh, is my favorite of all of the Hugh Januses that I know. So shout out to you, Hugh. He asks, sounds like we potentially go out and get a big run stuffing defensive tackle. Any chances we bolster our right tackle depth via trade before the season begins? I would bet, as I think I mentioned, way more in the defensive tackle than a lot of positions, and especially offensive line. I think starting offensive linemen have never been more scarce in recent NFL history. I don't think you'd get much disagreement from me, no matter who you asked on that. Teams do not cut good offensive linemen. They don't even want to trade them. Okay. And the ones they do trade are in a pick swap deal for a seventh round pick, like Yasir Durant 3-4 years ago. Okay. That's the ceiling, it seems to be, on those deals, unless there's a team that is just overflowing with good offensive linemen. So I don't know if that defensive tackle is a run stuffer because of the way that they've been playing sometimes. And they started in base defense in this some exhibition that happened recently was 3 defensive tackles. So you don't need a big run stuffer when you've just got a lot of beef on the field. I do think, though, that that's a position they're going to target on waivers, trade, whatever it might be. Quig, pretty sure Mike Vrabel is not happy with what he saw last night. He said the roster will change. As for the O-line, this isn't even a question. This is where I should have done the prep. He's just upset about the O-line. Brown, Bryan, and Wilson. You keep, flush the others. Okay, moving on. Dave, after Jennings dominated against practice players in game 2 and White was invisible in game 3, could Jennings have leapfrogged him on the depth chart? His lack of development looks very disappointing. It is disappointing. Let's start there. Our guy, Phil Perry, not our guy, because he hasn't been in the pod in a year and a half, 2 years. Phil Perry said recently he hasn't developed at all. Not gotten better. I don't think that's entirely true, but I don't think it's far off. And I don't think it's far off because ultimately this is a player who's shown a couple more moves. We talked about the guy who's just constant bull rush, and last year was better with an inside move. But now working with Mike Smith, who's developed his repertoire, and look, you got 3 coaches in 3 years. If you're the same player, that's a you problem. But no, Jennings did not leapfrog him on the depth chart. Keion White got demoted, let's be clear, but the guy who leapfrogged him was Caleb Chason. Kenny, let's make sure this one is a question. Okay, it is. I'm surprised at the lack of development across the offensive line this summer. Robinson, Strange, Caedan Wallace are all players who have shown some flashes of promise, albeit short glimpses. You'd think Vrabel's investment in his offensive line staff. Do you think they would have gotten more out of them? Out of one of them? Yeah, I do. And we can go case by case. Layden Robinson, clearly, they were not as high on as Drake Maye was, who was like, oh, he's going to be a starter. He's going to be a good player. This is just rookie mishaps. And while we're on topic, the Patriots starting Layden Robinson across from Jeffrey Simmons at left guard last year, maybe it was right guard, either way, is like, hey, go back and start again, was just a disaster waiting to happen. That why you would feed that 4th round rookie to one of the biggest, baddest wolves in the entire league. Blows my mind. Anyway, they decided he wasn't worth their investment. And he was not a great pass protector in college, prone to penalties, whatever. Cole Strange, 4th-year player. Okay. But City So and Caedan Wallace, and Wallace dealt with some injuries, are the ones that I go, okay, we should have seen a little bit more. Because So was good. He was actually good at the end of his rookie year when he finally got to play his natural position of guard. And he's been doing that since. Where that guy has gone, I don't know. So, yes, I do think they should have gotten a little bit more out of one of them because, as you mentioned, they've got 3 coaches. Doug Marrone, Jason Hoteling, and Robert Kugler are all coaching the offensive line. But you wouldn't know it from that list. Last one from X/Twitter. Deej, what do you believe has caused the reported offensive regression from the start of camp until now? I don't totally agree with the premise, but we led off the show talking about how protecting Drake Maye is a front and center storyline for the whole season. And that's because the offensive line has not been able to pass protect. They've gotten more dangerous the more they feature TreVeyon Henderson, which is good. Drake Maye's completion percentage, we joke about Drake Maye, low 60s for camp in the team drills. And you go, oh, training camp's that, blah, 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 blah. Every starting quarterback I've covered in Patriots training camp, now this is year 8 for me, has been above that mark, including Drake last year. Something to keep an eye on. But no, I don't think they've regressed like in a way that's shocking or upsetting or obvious. Like they've had ups and downs. That's more of what it's been. All right, last couple of questions, courtesy of Blue Sky. In case you didn't know, follow me over at Blue Sky at Andrew Callahan, no underscore. Here we go. Neely, your top needs for the team on the waiver wire. Neely thinks they're desperate for interior offensive line help and linebackers, maybe a slot corner type. So Alex Austin, they like as their backup nickelback. So that's there whenever Marcus Jones gets hurt, and I think that's going to happen. I don't think that's negotiable. Interior offensive line help is right. Linebacker, we already talked about. The two others that I would throw on there, actually, let's do three, because you know what? This question really illuminates their depth across a lot of positions, is shallower than you might think. Shallower, I think is what I said. Let's get back to the Celsius. Third tight end, edge, and defensive tackle. Need more bodies. Chris, who are the best offensive linemen 1 to 7? And Chris ranks them himself, so this is this is not very instructive. I agree with most of his list. So the Patriots' best offensive lineman now, as I see it, I would go Mike Onwenu, Morgan Moses. I think then you put Garrett Bradbury in, or Will Campbell, flip-flop those two. Ben Brown, probably. And then Jared Wilson and Marcus Bryant. This list, guarantee you, is going to fluctuate and change throughout the course of the season. So when I say Will Campbell might be their fourth best offensive lineman, there's no reason to panic, okay? It's just to say, based on what I've seen so far, as a rookie offensive lineman, 21-year-old, fits right in with the history of the NFL that says these guys struggle and have a hard time. We've got two more. Matt Jenkins. Haven't heard Caedan Wallace or Layden. A lot of offensive line talk, guys. Did they just totally whiff? The Patriots totally whiff on Caedan Wallace or Layden Robinson. Robinson, yes. And I think he's talented, but it just hasn't happened. Wallace, we'll see. I would love to see him play another position beside left guard this summer. It's been sparingly. I asked Mike Vrabel about this last night. He was like, yeah, well, he's injured and he got a little bit of run, but we wanted to see more of him at his new position last night. Fine. So Wallace, you still got a little bit of hope, but I think Layden Robinson is probably boxing up his things as we speak. Last one, Grand Jordanian. It's making fun of the media. Totally fair. Can you get the message to Anfernee Jennings that he's not a scheme fit and he should stop sacking and pressuring opposing quarterbacks? Remind him that all the pundits believe he is not a scheme fit, and if he doesn't stop sacking quarterbacks, he might get traded. And he might get traded anyway. Sure. I will be sure to tell Anfernee the next time I see him, even if that's not Sunday when the Patriots practice, or Monday when they practice again, or next week, 2 weeks, 10 days, when the media will be back in the locker room again. So that'll do it. As always, this time I didn't promise a short pod. We just went long. Thank you for hanging out. We'll have 2 episodes next week. One will certainly be either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, recapping all of the cuts. We'll have one more after that. Regular season's almost here. The real football is coming. I'm psyched. If you are too, again, leave us a review, Apple, Spotify. You just listen to 40 minutes. You get 2 more minutes, right? Do me a solid. And subscribe to the YouTube channel @_Andrew Callahan. All right, that's it. Have a great weekend, everybody.